All right, here we go. On a Monday. Woo! Woo! Welcome in. I'm a little mid-screen there. I'm going to elevate my chair a little bit. Let's see if that helps. A little. Woo! John Williams, good morning. There's two people in early now, three. But John Williams, you're the first I see. Welcome in. A little advance warning. Got a few variations in our setup this morning. So StreamYard audio could get funky. Just letting you know that. Prepare for echo. Prepare for no sound. Prepare for multiple sound. Prepare for anything. Expect the unexpected. Woo! Anthony Del Toro, what is up? Jesse Bratton, good morning, Jesse Bratton. What was my favorite video game growing up? John Williams, I grew up in the Pong era. I wasn't that big, Pac-Man, I wasn't that big into video games. I read books. I went outside and did sports. Here we go. Woo! All right, here we go. Get ready for anything. We shall see. Oh, I got to mute just in case of our evil. It is a manic Monday after a wild weekend in sports, highlighted by an insane finish to the Kentucky Derby. Rich Strike, 80-1. Underdog, Rich Strike, Friday morning when we did our draft, Rich Strike wasn't even in this race. He was admitted into the race just before the deadline, seconds before, and the rest is history. And it turned out to be a Kentucky Derby for the ages, maybe one of the most amazing horse races ever. We will talk about that. Houston Astros on a crazy streak. They've won 7 in a row. That's the longest winning streak in Major League Baseball at the moment. Wild goings on in the NBA playoffs. We blink and the Dallas Mavericks are right back in their series against the Phoenix Suns. Meanwhile, Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies out with injury and probably out for game number 4 as well. NFL news involving who to thunk, Papa John, Jerry Jones, and Daniel Snyder. So many things to get to on this Monday morning. Welcome in. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney, and the hardest working man in radio, Jeremy Kolok. Shannon, Salty, Sweeney, how are you this morning?
I'm doing really well, Chris. Got me a little setup here in a closet. It's very hot, but I think it's going to get the job done for us.
Now, you are in a secret, perhaps underground, undisclosed location. People joining us on the live video feed will see that you're not in the palatial, beautiful, high-tech, yet slightly delayed iHeartRadio studio that you normally are in. Care to reveal your secret underground bunker where you might be broadcasting from this morning?
Home of the Astros, Houston, Texas.
How cool is that? Home of the red hot Astros.
Still couldn't find them on TV yesterday.
That is absolutely wild. How was your weekend, and how'd you like what we saw in the world in sports?
It was a solid weekend and exciting. You know, I think we talked to Coach Paul A on Friday, and we were like, well, there's USFL and there's Kentucky Derby. But after that Thursday with no NBA games, it just kind of felt like a weird weekend to go into. But I enjoyed the Kentucky Derby coverage. Friday night, I watched a lot of that Warriors-Grizzlies game. So it was solid. And like I said, I'm in Houston, still couldn't find the Astros game on TV. Don't know what that's about. Really thought me being within the city would allow me to catch the game. But that channel apparently not on regular old cable here.
That is so crazy. It's 2022. The Astros are hugely popular, certainly in the state of Texas and certainly in Houston, where you are now and were over the weekend. I just can't believe, and I know Major League Baseball is probably at fault for this, but also the Astros, that they should have seen this coming. They should have found a way. There's huge fan bases in Austin, in San Antonio, certainly in Houston and across Texas. And they're losing money, Shannon. At the very least, they're losing money on merchandising. People would buy more Astros gear if they could watch more games, and probably losing money at the gate. There's probably, people who might otherwise get more locked in and want to make a road trip to Houston and Minute Maid Park to see the Houston Astros play. And they are red hot right now. So I don't, it's maddening to me that it's so difficult to find an Astros game on TV.
I know. I didn't think I would say it after watching that first Friday night baseball game on Apple TV Plus, but I need them to go and be back on that station because I know I can watch them there.
All right. Well, Jeremy Kolok is, I'm hesitant to go to him because pulling back the curtain, he's wrangling like 5 times more buttons and switches and levers this morning than he normally is. But the bad sports news for you, sir, and in a moment we'll go back to Shannon, as her Dallas Mavericks all of a sudden making it a series against the Phoenix Suns. But Jeremy, for you, your Memphis Grizzlies fighting valiantly against the Golden State Warriors in that series. We've been talking throughout these playoffs about the emergence of superstar Ja Morant. I mean, you knew about him, we knew about him, but the rest of the country finding out about him over the weekend. He goes out with an injury. The Golden State Warriors trounce the Memphis Grizzlies to take a 2-1 lead in that semifinal series in the Western Conference. And word is Ja Morant not expected to be available for game 4. It reminds me, and you brought this up on Friday, Jeremy, when the Spurs were playing the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals a number of years ago, and they lose their best player, Kawhi Leonard, for the Memphis Grizzlies to lose Ja Morant in this series. That is catastrophic.
Yeah, the only thing that gives me a little bit of hope, and I think other Grizzlies fans, is the Grizzlies had a heck of a record this year without Ja Morant. I mean, he missed a lot of the year, and I think they might have even had a better record with Ja not on the floor than when Ja was on the floor. And obviously, that doesn't mean he's not a great player, but it's just a statistic to keep an eye on as we move forward in this very tough series against a very, very difficult opponent.
I had forgotten about that statistic, and you make a great point. And again, it will all come down, it's 2-1 Warriors. So it'll obviously come down to a big game number 4 if without Ja Morant, as we're expecting, if the Memphis Grizzlies can find a way to win that game number 4, then suddenly, they'd be back in the series at 2-2, and we'll see what happens. That game is tonight, by the way. There's 2 games tonight. You've got Celtics Bucks at 6:30 on TNT. The Bucks are up 2-1 in that series, and that's in Milwaukee tonight for game number 4. Then, as we mentioned, 9:00 tonight, the late game on TNT at Golden State. So it'll be all the tougher for the Grizzlies to pull off a win. I'm looking at the line on that one. Golden State, a 10-point favorite tonight against the Grizzlies without Ja Morant. And Shannon, before we dive into your resurgent Dallas Mavericks, this is a game we're going to see what the Grizzlies are made of tonight. It's most people would expect an easy Warriors win, but as Jeremy mentions, this Grizzly team throughout the regular season, very successful without Ja Morant, and they're going to have to really rely on that tonight.
Well, in the opening of that game over the weekend for them, they looked like they were smacking the Warriors in the face, and we come to find out that Steve Kerr had told his Warriors they need to really focus on those high percentage shots in the field goal range, and that over time they would put together a nice, decent run, because at first it was threes all day for the Memphis Grizzlies, and ultimately the Warriors obviously come back to get that win. So sticking to that game plan may assist the Warriors, but also at the same time, if Memphis is able to keep hot from the 3-point line, they could see themselves being okay without Ja Morant. Now, Jeremy, I've got to question you about this Ja Morant injury, because there's kind of a controversy on where it actually took place. It looks to me like it took place on a defensive move when he reached up to try and block a ball and kind of landed awkwardly on that knee. But a lot of people are blaming Jordan Poole for an incident when Ja Morant had the ball. He was kind of losing it, and Jordan Poole dove for it. And in the diving process, I don't even want to say touched his knee, just kind of graced his knee, just kind of a whisper of touching the knee as he was trying to get to the ball.
Yeah, I wish I'm a little annoyed. Like I feel like I'm over these 2 teams going at it, because they've been annoying off the court about all these the code, and like where the other team's trying to injure my players. I don't think that Jordan Poole play was dirty in any way. I don't think he was trying to injure him. And I tend to agree with you, Shannon. The defensive play was the one where it looked like Ja put his knee in the more compromising position, and it looked like what happened to the way he kind of contorted it is more likely to have caused an injury. Obviously, I can't say here which play caused the actual injury to Ja Morant's leg, but I wish the NBA would ban the term "the code" from both teams in this series. Just play basketball. Just stop
Yeah,
talking about
that's a
all this
baseball
off the
thing.
court and between the dribble stuff. Let's just dribble the basketball and let's get a winner here. It's playoff basketball. There's going to be hard fouls.
Very, very good points there by Jeremy. All right, Shannon, when we last convened, your Mavericks, I don't think any of us were giving them much of a chance in this series against the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix Suns were playing very, very good basketball. All of a sudden now, we look up and that series is tied at 2-2 as the Mavericks win again yesterday over the Phoenix Suns, 111-101. Luka being Luka, 26 points, 11 assists, a double-double. He had 7 rebounds. Devin Booker, 35 points in the loss for the Suns. And Chris Paul making a lot of headlines, as were his family and some Mavericks fan. Chris Paul, first of all, fouls out of that game and then reports that a Mavericks fan, Chris Paul's family, was sitting behind the Phoenix Suns bench in that American Airlines arena in Dallas. And apparently an unruly fan actually physically touching Chris Paul's family, his mother, his wife, apparently shoving them. He was immediately removed by security. The Mavericks released a statement saying, they denounced that behavior as soon as they found out about it. They blew him out. Chris Paul's family saying they were in fear for their safety. A lot to unpack there, Shannon, but talk to us about your Mavericks evening this series at 2-2 and your thoughts about this fan behaving apparently very, very badly in Dallas.
I can admit it. I was a doubter of this Mavericks team after watching the first 2 games against the Suns. It could not be all Luka, and I think there was a bit of a wake-up call for this team because it was much more balanced as far as him getting assistance from everyone else. And then also on top of it, yesterday's game alone, you mentioned Chris Paul fouling out. He only had 4 points in that whole game. So combating either a Devin Booker or Chris Paul and forcing them to not be the point guard or who they're best known for when they are hot was certainly a contributor in the Mavs win. As far as the fan, I mean, it's horrible, and I'm embarrassed that it happened with a Mavericks fan, because we've been talking about unruly fans a lot throughout the year at all different venues. And they're always disappointing. But for that fan to go after his wife, and who is a mother, and his mother, who is obviously a mother on Mother's Day, and to do it, when obviously Mavs are getting a win, they're not already super happy about it. There's a video of Chris Paul yelling at, I guess, security, saying, "That's my mother. That's my mother." I don't think anyone should be going after anyone in the stands, and certainly not when they are high profile and, defenseless at the same time, just there to enjoy watching their son and husband play basketball.
I totally agree. And, you mentioned, Shannon, you're embarrassed that it was Mavericks fans. Whenever something like this happens, as a Spurs fan, I say, thank goodness that doesn't happen in San Antonio. And I know there's been some instances, nothing like this that I'm aware of, but I've seen like fans going after it, like after a game. I've seen some video footage of Spurs fans and Laker fans getting into a tussle, and dragging each other to the ground and stuff like that, which again, I don't ever want to see that from a San Antonio Spurs fan. You never know who started it, but I again, this latest incident, and as you mentioned, Shannon, we have been talking about unruly fans and violent fans and fans going over the line. It almost still feels to me like all of this in America. We've talked about, people in grocery stores getting into it with other shoppers because somebody's wearing a mask, and people being belligerent about whether or not they believe in a mask. We see all of these airline passengers getting physical, getting violent, getting unruly. I saw another one of those videos over the weekend. I saw a woman who was asked to get off a plane, and she refused, and things got crazy. We've talked about road rage and road rage shootings being higher than usual. And be careful, Shannon, because when I did that story a couple of weeks ago, Houston was the worst in the state of Texas for road rage shootings. So be very, very careful as you drive around Houston. I just think as a country and as a culture, so many people are just behaving badly, and a lot of it seems to have been fueled by the pandemic. I'm thinking maybe it's almost they say when you're a prisoner and they put you in solitary confinement that you begin to lose your mind a little bit. I think a lot of Americans maybe lost their minds a little bit during the pandemic when they were at home for an extended period of time. All right, we got a lot to cover. We got a great high five play of the day coming up with some tremendous audio of that. We will dive into that amazing Kentucky Derby. I'm not a huge horse racing fan, but I got to tell you, I've never seen anything like that in horse racing. How great for the sport that something like that happened. We will talk NFL. There's news involving Jerry Jones, Dan Snyder, and Papa John, which is kind of crazy, but it sounds legit. Earl Thomas, the gift that keeps on giving. He's back in the news. I think he lives in Austin too. Earl, if you want to dial us up this morning when we're talking about you, 800-707-9760. Or Earl, we'd love to see you on the live video feed. Or Earl Thomas, that new talkback feature on the free iHeartRadio app. Leave us a message, and you could leave us a threatening message, as you are alleged to have done with your estranged wife. Allegedly, all sides of the story. Shannon Salty Sweeney is in Houston covering those Houston Astros for us. Oh, by the way, later today, I'm going to be hanging out with Coach Sark and Chris Beard, and it is the big old Longhorn tour rolling through San Antonio. Hook 'em later this afternoon. So we'll talk some Longhorn football, basketball, and more with you, with Shannon Salty Sweeney, and with Jeremy Kolok. Jeremy Kolok earning his radio paycheck this morning, doing a lot of extra work. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. Fasten your seat belts for the high five play of the day, which is next. You're listening to the Chris Duel Show. All right. Woo! Welcome in, everybody. Let me see here. We Hey, Jeremy, I am going to try that second StreamYard. I don't think it's possible, but I'm going to try it. I'm able to like fire one up here. We'll see what happens. All right, I've started a second one here. Hang on. Wow. It might. So far, it's letting me in. Hang on. I'm sending you guys the invite. We're trying to experiment with something here because Jeremy's got some technical issues. Okay, I just sent you a link to it. It'd be crazy if this works. Okay, there's you. And see, are we still in the other stream? Luis, I'll tell you what that, there's an official title for that. What was that? I haven't memorized the name of it yet. Let's see. They do it every year. They go to Austin and, well, not, they're from Austin. They go to the Texas Fight Tour. It is at 6:30 tonight. See if I can find some details on that, and I'll put it in the Texas Fight Tour, San Antonio. It's at the Rim. It's at a restaurant. There it is. The Rustic. It's at the Rustic at 6 o'clock tonight. Here's the details, Louisa. I'm popping these into the comments. And I think I got a link here. Link. I think it's $20 if you're a Texas X or a Longhorn Foundation member, $30 for non-members, $10 for kids. All right. See if I can snag some coffee here. So we're actually there's 2 StreamYard links. We're running 2 videos. I didn't know you could do this. I don't know why you'd ever otherwise want to do this, but this was Jeremy's idea. So we got one that let me ask him. So, Jeremy, on the other StreamYard link that you want Shannon's audio only, you want me to mute me on that one? So you said a yes? Okay. So mute me and mute you. Okay. I can't, you're a genius, man. I can't believe we're able to do that. I don't know why anybody otherwise would want to run 2 StreamYard links at the same. I don't know, but it's interesting. Tracy, will that game, and we know the NFL schedule drops on Thursday. I wonder if that Bucks Cowboys game will be in Arlington at AT&T Stadium or in Tampa Bay. Remember, on the number 1 StreamYard feed, for you to be heard there, you need to unmute. So we'll see how that goes. Good morning, everybody on the live video feed. We're rolling through some technical issues, but hopefully it all works. Arlington, says Tracy. Very cool. Tom Brady comes to AT&T Stadium. Jason Paniagua, buenos dias. Carl, I would love to go to that game, man. All right, here we come. See, I am muted on that one.
Let's get back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Find Chris and Salty on Twitter at Chris Duel and at Shannon B. Sweeney.
Welcome in on a manic Monday. So much going on in the world of sports. There was so much going on over the weekend, especially that Kentucky Derby. Rich Strike, the 80-1 underdog, the least expected horse, and even more so because that horse wasn't even in that race on Friday morning when we were doing this show. We'll get into that story. The revelation or allegations from Papa John's owner John Snyder about Jerry Jones and Dan Snyder. We'll get into that. Earl Thomas and a whole lot more. And we'll talk some Texas Longhorns. The Texas Fight Tour rolling into San Antonio later this late afternoon, early evening at the Rustic at the Rim with athletic director Chris Del Conte and many Longhorn coaches, including football coach Steve Sarkisian and men's basketball coach Chris Beard. A lot of other coaches there as well. The women's basketball coach, volleyball coach. We'll run you through everybody who's coming. And I do believe tickets are still available. We'll give you information on that in case you want to go out there. I'm going to head out there this evening as well. So before that, a couple of quick things. The iHeartRadio app, which is free, and we're always crystal clear. The talkback feature there. We've invited Earl Thomas this morning to join us on the talkback feature. You don't have to be Earl Thomas, and you don't have to leave a threatening message. You could actually, just sound off, give us your take, and you could even say something nice. And maybe Earl Thomas will call in and, be very, very friendly on that later today or at any time this morning. So go to the iHeartRadio app, listen to us via AM 1300 The Zone or Ticket 760, that little microphone button at the bottom. Leave a message, send it. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Live video feed is happening as well. You can join us there and dial us up on the phone line at any time, 800-707-9760. But right now, I think you're going to like this one. I know I do. It is time for the High Five play of the day, appropriately sponsored by High Five, 2 locations in the Austin area. They got everything you're looking for. Big screen TVs, great food, great drinks, including adult beverages, food specials, drink specials, all kinds of games you can play, from bowling to laser tag to axe throwing, much, much more. Zombie dodgeball. It's all going on. Get into one of the 2 Austin area High Five locations. Shannon Salty Sweeney, who's getting that high five this morning?
Well, you mentioned it at the start of the show, Chris, the Astros on a 7-0 tear, and they did so all at home, which is amazing in and of itself. And to cap things off over the weekend against the Detroit Tigers, they won 5-0. 4 of those runs came from Aledmys Diaz when he hit a grand slam, and the audio is perfection.
Diaz sends one high and deep to left field. The 2 near the out-of-town scoreboard. This ball's gone. Grand slam. Aledmys Diaz into the first row of the Crawford boxes, and the Astros score 4 with 1 swing. That's the big one.
What a great home run and grand slam for the Astros. Chris, they are now in second in the AL West, just one game behind the Angels, who we know they've played numerous times already this season. And this week, they prepare to take on Carlos Correa for the first time with his new team in the Minnesota Twins.
Well, and I love it. They went 7-0 on that homestand, which was absolutely beautiful. And that 7-game win streak now, the longest in Major League Baseball. The Dodgers have a 6-game win streak. They're very formidable. We know the New York Yankees had an 11-game win streak just last week. They were at 11 in a row. But as we speak, over the last 7, the Astros, hottest team in baseball, again, unbeaten on the homestand. And Shannon, this is what we were hoping for. We were hoping the Astros would come alive. Jeremy Pena, we've talked about him quite a bit, replacing Carlos Correa. He'll be all the more interesting to watch in, as you mentioned, that upcoming series against the Minnesota Twins when, Correa and his Astros replacement, Jeremy Pena, will be playing in the same game. But so right, Aledmys Diaz showing up, getting the grand slam. We've got Altuve back. This 7-game win streak was built as Altuve returned. So I'm loving it. We were hoping the Astros would turn things around. Interestingly, they kind of floundered a little bit out of the gate last year as well. So their record, even when it was not too impressive about a week ago, was still very much like their record was last year at this time. So, but what they did last year and what we need them to do now is really get hot and get hot at the right time. So just tremendous weekend and tremendous 7 games for the Astros.
Yep.
Tracy Bogert on the live video feed pointing out that the Astros were 11-11 before this streak began. Now they're 18-11, 7 games above 500. And again, that's the best they've been all year long. They started the season at 4-1 before they went into a pretty big slump. Mm-hmm. So 7 in a row, 7 games above 500. High five to Aledmys Diaz and the Houston Astros. And let's keep a good thing going. It's May 9th as we move into summer, Shannon. These summers are a lot more enjoyable when the Astros are winning. Yes. So hopefully we're on our way to seeing that happen now.
Well, not only did they have great offense with that grand slam, but in yesterday's win, 5-0 over the Detroit Tigers, they only allowed 1 hit. So they got to keep that up. They do have today off as they prepare to take on Carlos Correa for the first time. Now, Chris, as mentioned, I am in Houston. Had trouble finding yesterday's Astros game. But not having trouble on all of the kind of standard broadcast channels. I feel like every single commercial break, there is a Mattress Mac furniture store commercial featuring the legend himself. And he is once again offering to pay for people's furniture up to $3,000. If you buy $3,000 worth of furniture during the Astros season and the Astros win the World Series, he will then give you $6,000.
Whoa!
So he's not only giving you money back,
different than his other offers in the past. This is amazing.
He's giving you money on top of it, and your furniture ends up being free. I don't know how much of the Kentucky Derby coverage you watch, but he was there. He single-handedly changed the odds of Epicenter because that was his bet that he placed. Epicenter obviously not end up winning that race, but you wonder, he keeps placing all of these bets, and lately his streak has not been great. So I'm hoping by the time October runs around, for the sake of those that have purchased that furniture and for the sake of Mattress Mac at this point, that the Astros get these wins.
That would be a wild story. And again, I kind of like that he's doing this. I think it's very innovative. Here we are again. I mean, just think about it. Here we're talking about Mattress Mac again, and this has been repeated on the radio and on television across the country time and time again because of these promotions that he is doing. But can you imagine if he started really losing a lot of these bets, and then what if the Astros win the World Series and then Mattress Mac, he has all these people, they want their $6,000, they want their $3,000 paid for, and they want their other $3,000. What if he then has to declare bankruptcy? Could you imagine how many angry Astro fans and furniture customers there would be if he said, it's like, we believed you, and now we got to, you declared bankruptcy. I don't think that's going to happen. He seems to know what he's doing.
Yeah.
But it's a possibility.
I mean, the thought is that he's bet so much on the Astros to win the World Series that if they win, he can more than afford to pay those customers back, release the furniture, double their money, and then still walk away with probably a couple million more.
He is such a madman. He is just
craziness.
Unbelievable. All right, we got to talk a little bit about this, Shannon, this story with Jerry Jones and Daniel Snyder. And it was on the Fearless podcast. Daniel Snyder said, and this was right back in the time of around the time that Colin Kaepernick and others in the NFL were taking a knee, and apparently Jerry Jones did not like how Commissioner Roger Goodell was handling it. So according to John Schnatter, the original Papa John, who at the time, Papa John's was the biggest advertiser for the National Football League. I mean, you would see those spots everywhere. Apparently Jerry Jones and Daniel Snyder, according to Papa John, wanted him to carry his weight around and help get Commissioner Roger Goodell fired. Sounds like something. I remember at the time, Jerry Jones was very vocal about not liking the kneeling and saying something has to be done about it. Over time, as we saw, there was a game in Phoenix, Glendale to be more specific, where Jerry and the entire team before the national anthem locked arms and they went down to one knee and then stood up, and they all stood for the national anthem. So it was kind of a compromise, but a couple of things here to consider, Shannon. Number one, Jerry Jones allegedly working behind the scenes to overthrow the commissioner. Secondly, just another indication of Jerry Jones' connection to Daniel Snyder, how, maybe they are truly allies, and maybe a lot of Cowboy and football fans don't fully realize that.
I mean, Jerry Jones's involvement in the NFL is very Game of Thrones to me. And this just is another example of it. And in that statement from former Papa John himself, he says that Jerry asked him to, quote, take him out, as in the commissioner. I mean, that almost sounds like a hit job, but coming from the inside. And, as someone who still enjoys a Papa John's pizza from time to time, I don't like that company keeps getting run into the ground because this man keeps popping up into our universe.
Yeah, he's kind of a madman. But part of this, and we've talked about this when Robert Kraft had his massage issue that is really worse, I think, than was on the surface of it. The surface story was on a day that his Kansas City Chiefs, or excuse me, that his New England Patriots were in Kansas City at Arrowhead to play the Chiefs in the playoffs. He's caught in a raid at a massage parlor, and there's video. What the story there that wasn't reported enough was that those women were believed to have been human trafficked against their will from China to serve there as sex workers at that massage parlor. Anyway, that kind of goes away. It goes to court. The video never surfaces. If you're a multi-billionaire, you can make wonderful things happen in an American court. But this whole Daniel Snyder thing, Shannon, we've talked about how despicable this man seems to be and how mismanaged and worse the Washington Commanders are, and yet no true sanction by the NFL. John Gruden gets fired for his emails while he's the Raiders coach last year. It makes you wonder. We talk about what a power broker Jerry Jones is. If he's truly aligned with Daniel Snyder and all other owners, it makes you wonder if they'll ever allow anyone to lose their franchise, no matter how bad their behavior may be.
Yeah. And you think of first thing that comes to mind with someone who does lose their franchise, Donald Sterling. And I've actually got news on him in the shakedown today. But, the question I think becomes, what is it going to take? because there's all these strikes against them. And, I really thought RG3, with the book he was supposed to release, the book he said that would be a tell-all, hidden secrets that we've all been waiting for, would be the final straw. And it starts to feel like now, behind the scenes, he was paid off, he was threatened, there was something that went down to make him not even publicly pull the book, but just simply remove all details about the book even being a thing in the first place. He's never come out and said, oh, by the way, never mind.
I know that's another incredible layer to all of this. And I just have to believe that Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft and probably all other NFL owners they probably have skeletons in their closet that they don't want revealed. Now you've got that controversy with the Miami Dolphins and the, allegations that they were throwing games, which goes to the integrity of the game itself, which would seem to me would be a reason to lose your franchise. But so far, no major movement there either. And again, Shannon, it looks like no matter how badly you behave as an owner in the NFL, they will close ranks and they will protect you. It's pretty amazing.
And speaking of all of that, I think, last week we talked about Magic Johnson partnering with the owner of the 76ers to try and make a bid for the Broncos. You have Peyton Manning in a group trying to make a bid for the Broncos. Those guys not only obviously have been around sports and understand the leagues and how they work, but as former players, they're probably going to have a different perspective than just these guys who are natural billionaires, and how the new ownership of the Broncos, if they're able to kind of go in and disrupt the boys club as the way we know it, or if they'll, disrupt it by just telling all of the secrets that we seem to think are true, but have no evidence of yet.
We got a lot more to get into all morning long. We got to talk Kentucky Derby and 80-1 long shot rich strike. We'll talk NFL. The schedules are going to drop later this week. So Major League Baseball, lots of NBA playoffs, NFL, and more. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. He's Jeremy Kolok. We are with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Woo! Okay, let me see here. John, then don't go to YouTube, man. You're on the wrong feed, John. That's an alternate YouTube feed that we're setting up for our technical issues. So go to the other YouTube feed, John. Or go to Facebook, or go to the iHeartRadio app. We had to do that other feed on the fly. All right. All right. Got to make an ice run, I do believe. Actually, the ice is looking decent. You write a little note. All right, I'll be back in a sec. Woo! Woo! All right, I need to find Rich Strike.
But when she gets on her bike, Rebel Renee.
YouTube ads drive me crazy.
Things done, and she rides with Geico because she'll never rebel against great service. Geico, savings and service for both your sides.
Once again, we're ready for a start. They're off. In the Kentucky. Oh, my God. The Kentucky Derby. Rich Strike has done it. In a stunning, unbelievable upset.
Jeremy, I found a better audio on Rich Strike in the Kentucky Derby that doesn't cut off as abruptly, so I'm going to send that to you. Steve Duraco, good morning. Steve Duraco going to join me at the Texas Fight Tour later today. We'll talk about that. Private chat. I sent you the link in the private chat. Let me know if that works. And we don't need to do the whole thing, but, like the last, at least, maybe 45 seconds until the race ends. Cool, man. And we may get to that here if you can pull it off. If not, no biggie. If you're ready with it at some point, let us know in the chat. And thanks for all the extra work today. I know it's been a major hassle. First thing in the morning, Jesus. Thanks, man. Luis Alvarez, Mind That Bird. Welcome in. Woo! Woo! Better guzzle some coffee while I get a chance. Woo! Welcome in, everybody, on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter. Here we go. 7 o'clock hour. Fun, fun, fun.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
Here we go.
Now, Chris Duel.
Just another manic Monday.
Wish it were Sunday.
Wish it was Sunday.
That's my fun day.
That's my fun.
My I don't have to run day.
I don't have to run. It's just another manic Monday.
Welcome in on this Manic Monday, May 9th, 2022. After a hot weekend, triple digits across most of the great state of Texas, and a hot weekend in sports. major developments in the NBA playoffs on and off the court. A crazy finish in the Kentucky Derby. We'll talk more about that. We'll play you the audio of Rich Strike, the 80-1 underdog. We'll talk about Shannon Salty Sweeney trying to snake into stealing our Kentucky Derby draft competition. I had to get a poolside ruling from an official judge over the weekend on that.
Now, wait a minute. Your poolside ruling was one Mr. Duraco,
Yes.
your BFF. So there's some collusion. We may need to put this out to the people once we give them the behind the scenes of what went down.
Yes, well, and we will. But you amazed me, Shannon, because I just, for FYI, I sent you and Jeremy the information that one of the horses you drafted was out of the race. And my feeling was, because we talked about it, it's like, well, what if a horse doesn't finish? We said that during the draft. We said, well, then you get 20th place for that horse when we add him up. So I text Jeremy and Shannon. I go, up, Shannon, you got a horse that's already going to be out of the race. Shannon goes, oh, okay. Then I'll just take Rich Strike, the new. So on one level, congratulations. That was a brilliant move, and you nailed it. On another one, just a little. I don't know. I think just going outside the rules, and that's why I had to get my official Kentucky Derby draft judge, Judge Steve Duraco's poolside beer-induced ruling over the weekend.
I mean, my thought was, dude did not finish. He would have to have been in the gates. You got to start in order to finish, right? He didn't even start. But I will gladly accept whatever ruling is made official by our listeners, because I did do some third grade math, as I let y'all know yesterday. Ultimately, Chris was the winner, followed by Jeremy, and then myself. But should the ruling be that the people allow me to have put Rich Strike in place of my horse, Earl Road, who backed out on Friday for whatever reason, I would jump into first place there.
Well,
and overall, again, just the race itself. I mean, come on.
Yes. My goodness. Well, and again, I am inclined. I mean, you add the numbers on all the horses, and apparently mathematically I may win. It would be a hollow victory for me, because I wouldn't have had any horse that won the darn thing. And technically, although I think illegally, you're kind of the New England Patriots of or the Houston Astros, since you're in Houston, of Kentucky Derby drafting and wagering. But I mean, technically, and you did choose, but not on the radio. No. It was after you chose Rich Strike.
We do have the receipts from the tweet.
Yes.
Messages.
You should. I mean, there's certainly kudos to be had for that. In a moment, we'll play you the audio of that race and that finish. And I got to ask Shannon and Jeremy. I mean, I've been watching horse racing since I was a kid, and that was many, many, many years ago. I've never seen anything like that. And I just, in the same way that, when Tiger Woods plays golf, we say it's great for golf if Tiger is getting a lot of people to talk about golf and watch golf. I got to believe it's great for horse racing to get so many people so excited about horse racing. I do want to mention this, though, Shannon, and I've been to this event before, and I'm going to go, speaking of my drinking buddy and official Kentucky Derby judge who ruled against you on video on social media on Saturday. Steve Duraco is going to join me this evening. It's at 6:00 tonight. It's from 6 to 8 at the Rustic, which is at the Rim. It is the Texas Fight Tour. And I'll just read you the description. Join Texas athletics, the Texas X's, and Longhorns in your community for this Texas Fight Tour stop. Hear from Texas Longhorns head football coach Steve Sarkisian, head men's basketball coach Chris Beard, head women's basketball coach Vic Schaefer, head volleyball coach Jarrett Elliott, and athletic director Chris Del Conte about the future of the Texas Longhorns athletics program. bask in burnt orange spirit and more. That's 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock tonight at the Rustic. It's $20 if you're a Texas X's member, or if you're in the Longhorn Foundation, $30 for non-members, 10 for children, 7 to 12, kids under 6 get in free. And your ticket, Shannon, gets you not only a full buffet, but 2 drink tickets.
Wow.
Yeah, they had me at 2 drink tickets. You get a commemorative Texas Fight Tour stadium bag, a commemorative Texas Fight Tour poster, and you can get autographs and photos with the coaches. That all sounds pretty cool to me.
Man, for $30, I mean, I'd get in for 20, but for $30, that's, I mean, the 2 drinks alone and then all that swag.
Woo.
You know, that event has Chris Del Conte and his mind written all over it. You know, this Texas tour. I think they've already been up to Arlington and some places up north. I know yesterday I saw a picture of Coach Shark with Josh Wolf, the coach of Austin FC. So I know they were back home and probably getting ready for the trip down to San Antonio today, but it's a great recruiting tool. It's for athletes and non-athletes. Look at all of these superstars of the school trying to make connections with those from around the state of Texas, because that's been a really big thing since Del Conte became, the head athletic director there. Is that we don't want to lose out on kids who are from the state of Texas who are good enough to play for the University of Texas. If they're making offers to those kids, they want them to come to their school and not jump to the Alabamas or the USCs or wherever else they've been deciding to go recently.
And it's interesting. I went to one of these events 2 or 3 years ago. It was in the Tom Herman era, and it was at a different station. It was down at Sunset Station near the Alamo Dome, and Chris Del Conte was there. But as I recall, Tom Herman was not there. And I just and now looking back on that and now seeing that, to me, 2 of the big headliners are, Steve Sarkisian, the football coach, and Chris Beard, the men's basketball coach. Obviously, those other coaches are a big deal as well. But I mean, Sarkisian and Chris Beard are really a big deal. And for them to go to all of these cities, obviously that takes of their time, and both of them want to be working on their jobs and making their programs better. But again, I agree with you. Kudos to Chris Del Conte and the Longhorn athletic program for pulling this off and getting, in particular, Sark and Chris Beard to come around. I mean, that just adds automatic sizzle to an event like this.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about how those coaches, they get it. I mean, coming to the university and putting coach in front of your name, you're not just a part of that team. You have to be the man of the people, a man of Longhorn Nation, if you will, and that is extended throughout the state of Texas. And I'm sure Coach David Pierce, who is another big name on campus, obviously baseball in the middle of their season, or else I would very much expect him to have been part of this as well.
Okay, a couple of things here. Now, Luisa Alanis is writing us on the live video feed, and she says the event is sold out. So unfortunately, I couldn't get in. So, I just mentioned ticket prices. So if that's true,
tweet
beware.
Del Conte.
Say again?
Tweet Chris Del Conte.
There you go.
Or Matt, his like the assistant, because they're very good at making workarounds happen if they are actually available.
Yeah, I would imagine they want to shoehorn as many people into that event as they possibly can. So anybody just hearing about it now for the first time, double check on ticket availability. And I know there was like an Eventbrite site where you could get tickets, and I'm assuming that's what Luisa did. And Shannon with inside information as a big time Longhorn. So you said tweet Chris Del Conte and who else?
I'll have to re-verify his name, but his assistant, who we've actually spoken to before, I believe. He's got his Twitter handle is interesting. I'll share it on our live feed. But they're really good about, at the very least, communicating what's going on if you tweet to them, and if it actually is sold out, they will let you know. But if not, they may know how to get you in.
Yeah, and there might be people who bought tickets, and there's often no shows, which make things possible. The other thing that Luisa wrote, I mentioned, in San Antonio a few years ago, I went to one of these events. Chris Del Conte was there. There were other coaches there. It was a great event. But, at the time, Tom Herman was the head football coach, and he would have been the headliner. And, that's my big takeaway from that event was that he wasn't there. Louisa also wrote that Tom Herman was in San Antonio, but speaking at another event that day. All right, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
And you would think if he was in San Antonio speaking at another event, you would think, all right, get a limo. And again, this was like a 2-hour event. Get a limo, and either before or after your other speaking engagement, say, hey, man, this is a big deal. It's the Texas tour stop. I got to head on over and just show up for 5 minutes and go, hey, I got this big event. I'm speaking over there at the Marriott, but I wanted to say hook 'em and say hi to all of you. I don't know. I just think, knowing now what we know, how the Tom Herman era turned out, that, maybe there was a little, superstardom going on there. It's like, hey, man, I'm busy. I got a more important engagement than the Texas Fight Tour stop.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm speculating, of course.
Well, par for the course for Tom Herman. And just to update that, Drew Martin, whose Twitter handle is @hookem_Drew. He's the executive senior associate AD. So he does a lot. He's great on Twitter. I've interacted with him numerous times. And also, I think the best dressed man on campus. I know a lot of people think it's Chris Del Conte, but Drew outdoes him. I'll say it.
We're going to have to bring him on just to discuss your ordaining him the best dressed man on campus, Drew Martin. That's pretty, and we might have to put some photos up of some of his various wardrobe choices. In fact, I'll look for him today at the event. I'm sure if Chris Del Conte's there, and if I find him, Shannon, I will say that you declared him on the radio the best dressed man on campus. That's pretty exciting.
Do it. I mean, if you walk up to him, you will understand why. That man is always dressed to impress. Okay,
now let me check with Jeremy. Do we have that audio from the Kentucky Derby? Are we ready with that? Okay, cool. Let's, Shannon, it was so remarkable. And again, to recap, Rich Strike, when we were on the air Friday and drafting horses in the Kentucky Derby, none of us drafted Rich Strike because there was no Rich Strike in that race. Another horse had to leave that race. Minutes before the deadline, Rich Strike was added, the longest of long shots at 80-1. Then the three of us, a little personal controversy in that Shannon goes, oh, I'll take Rich Strike in that case. But she was right. And at 80-1, and if you haven't seen the video, do it. It's all over the place. It's on Twitter. It's on YouTube. In fact, we'll tweet out the YouTube that we're looking at right now that has the audio. But to see what this horse and this jockey did from all the way back, from last place, meandering through the horses, and we'll talk about it in a moment, the acceleration in the final furlong or more of Rich Strike. It looked like Rich Strike was running 3 times faster than the rest of the horses in the field. It was crazy. And again, I think it was the most remarkable horse race I've ever seen in my life. Before we talk about it, let's go to the call and the final moments of the Kentucky Derby on Saturday.
Epicenter has taken the lead as they arrive into the final furlong. Sandon is coming after him. Epicenter and Sandon, these two, strive for stride. Simplification down the outside is next. They're coming down to the wire. Epicenter, Sandon, Rich Strike is coming up on the inside. Oh my goodness, the longest shot has won the Kentucky Derby. Rich Strike has done it in a stunning, unbelievable upset.
The longest shot has won the Kentucky Derby. And as you listen to that call, that announcer doesn't even realize Rich Strike is coming till the final seconds. We've all now seen that aerial video that has the arrow on Rich Strike for the whole race. And you can see this incredible movement through the other horses, and then just turn on the afterburners to jet by the other horses and win this race. The announcer, clearly his eyes on the leaders coming down the stretch. Shannon, just amazing race. And again, the most amazing horse race I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. You mentioned, I'd kind of slotted him in, whatever. The reason I thought you'd be totally okay with it was because he was 80-1, because he was just the replacement for the horse I had previously picked. There are 20 horses who raced. We each drafted 6. There were 2 that weren't touched. But I mean, ultimately, that horse that did back out so Rich Strike could come in was my last pick. I mean, that just shows you how much we all know about horse races here at the Chris Duel show. But what an incredible event. I mean, even from the moment that they called riders up, I mean, there were horses that were acting out of line. There was one horse who just could not keep his tongue in his mouth. And there were all these stories that I don't think I've ever connected with horses anymore. There was a horse from Japan, and Japan, they've never had a horse win the Kentucky Derby. So part of my heart was like, oh my gosh, I want them to win. There were some of the more beautiful horses I think I've ever seen run that race in White Abario. He was gorgeous, kind of a gray horse. And then the story of Rich Strike. They get his name in 30 seconds to spare on Friday. He's got the number 21 on his horse
Whoa.
because he was not initially involved in the Derby. It was the first Derby for that rider. The owner had once thought about giving up and quitting horse racing altogether until he came across the trainer that ultimately trained Rich Strike and ultimately won this incredible event. And then you talk about, he looked like he was going 3 times fast. Is that where horsepower comes from? Because I think people need to start selling their cars as this has a Rich Strike effect to it, because you'll be able to come from behind in any race. I mean, we just listened to that audio and it was all about Epicenter and was he going to be able to hold on? And then out of nowhere comes Rich Strike just at the right moment. The most entertaining 3 minutes there is in sports.
See, you mentioned Rich Strike being number 21 in that race, and immediately made me think of, all right, does that make Rich Strike the greatest number 21 ever? Of course, Tim Duncan at number 21 first came to my mind. Deion Sanders at number 21. We might have to turn that into not only a poll question, but who is the greatest number 21 ever in sports? I'm going to, right now, I got it pretty even between Rich Strike, Tim Duncan, and Deion Sanders. That'd be a lot of fun. If you want to leave us a message on the talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app, who is the greatest number 21 ever and why? And let us know your names. So as you're calling in as well.
Don't you dare send in Ezekiel Elliott. Don't do it.
We will flame you. We will mock and humiliate you. Exactly. Thanks, Jera. Jeremy Kolok, dude, your thoughts on this incredible Kentucky Derby victory by the longest of long shots, Rich Strike.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know if I could sum it up much better than Shannon just did. I mean, it's the most exciting few minutes in sports, those 3 minutes. And I think this is the fun part of the Derby, is like Shannon said, like it shows what we know about horse racing here on the Chris Duel show. Well, nobody knows anything. Like you just said, they were talking about the Japanese horse the entire pre-race, like whatever you would call it, the pre-game show of the Kentucky Derby. They were talking about the Japanese horse. They basically talking about every horse besides Rich Strike. And that's what's so fun about the Derby to me. It's like a March Madness element. Like there's no do-over if the favorite has a bad race, right? It's anything could happen in it. And I think this year was a great example of what makes the Derby so fun, the unknown.
And I got to believe they minted a whole lot of new horse racing fans. There'll be more eyes on the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes now. And I next year, the Kentucky Derby, I mean, no way you're going to follow that or live up to that, but it'll just fuel horse racing in general, the Triple Crown, and certainly next year's Kentucky Derby in particular. A couple of things. We got another nomination for the greatest number 21 ever. Cliff Branch, Hall of Famer, Oakland Raiders. Jason Paniagua nominates him. And Shannon, another judge, has voiced his opinion. Manuel Gonzalez says, sorry, Chris, I think Shannon wins this horse racing dispute. So right now, so we probably need a tiebreaker. We've got Judge Steve DeRocco voting against you, Shannon. However, moments ago, Judge Manuel Gonzalez on our live video feed votes in your favor. So this could come down to a very, very tight judgment on whether or not you get this victory. Okay, there we've got Luisa Alani says Shannon definitely wins since she has the text to prove her selection.
Yeah.
Judge Judy would. I got the text, Luisa. I immediately texted back saying, "Who says you get another pick?"
And I
'Cause
sent
we
a
each
gift
picked
that said
six.
I do.
We picked him on the air, and I saw Shannon goes, "Oh, in that case, I'll take a Rich Strike at 80-1." It's like, no, we picked on the air. There's no draft do-over. When the NFL draft is over, Jerry Jones doesn't go, "Oh, I want to pick Sincere McCormick." No, the draft is over.
You were sending like emojis though too, so I was confused. I was like, is he like having fun, or is he being for real? But you know the hammer, right? Like, isn't that a judge that you know who goes by the hammer? I mean,
yes,
can he do the final ruling? I mean, we should do like a whole court case and state our case.
I like that.
If we had put money on this.
If Gabe the Hammer Quintanilla comes in here, he's often joining us on our live video feed. We might have to. I like that. We might have to state our cases to an actual judge.
Get the court music ready.
Yep. Okay.
Jeremy.
We got another, and I'm sorry, John Williams, and we love John. John's a regular listener out of Dallas. John nominating for the greatest number 21 ever, Kevin Garnett.
Not even in basketball is he the greatest 21.
Exactly. I mean, John, I get it. And Kevin Garnett is renowned. But when a guy named Tim Duncan wore number 21 in basketball, I think we need to rethink that. Speaking of 21, wasn't Michael Cooper number 21 for the Lakers? The final episode, as you well know, Shannon and Jeremy, of Winning Time. I almost watched it last night. I saw it. I got a notice on my phone. And it like 8:00 last night, and it said the final episode of Winning Time is dropped on HBO Max. I thought, maybe I'll watch, but then I thought, and unlike you, Shannon, I thought of my compatriots, my team. I said, you know what, Jeremy and Shannon are going to wait till Monday, so I'm going to wait till Monday. I don't want to jump the gun and take false advantage here.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm so giving. All right. Coming up, Shannon's salty shakedown for a manic Monday. As so much going on in the world of sports that we're still going to get to this day in sports history, sports birthdays. And we want to know, Rich Strike, number 21 in that Kentucky Derby, wins the race, the longest of long shots at 80-1. So we are asking you, who is the greatest number 21 ever? Was it Rich Strike? Do we go for a horse after just 3 minutes or less? Or was it Tim Duncan? Was it Deion Sanders? Is it Cliff Branch? Or do you join with John Williams of Dallas and go Kevin Garnett? Thank you, Jerry. And as Shannon said, if you say Ezekiel Elliott, we will know you're high. You are low-key faded, bro, if you choose Ezekiel Elliott. Maybe Zeke will call in. Let us know on the live video, actually on the iHeartRadio app, little microphone button, the talkback button. We'll play your nominations on the air. Quick break. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney, the possible Kentucky Derby champion of our draft. He is Jeremy Kolok. I'm Chris, with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Yeah, but Manuel, they don't race a second time. He only had one shot. Tom Cunanan. All right, Roberto Clemente, much better, John. Roberto Clemente, impressive. All right. This time I am going to get some ice. Oh, why'd you have to check? Excellent. Wes, we will play that. Thank you, Wes Perkins. I'm going to go get some ice. Mike Taylor sitting in. Always appreciated.
Your apron's crisp, barbecue utensils polished, chicken properly spiced. It's grilling season. So pick up this smoky, wood-fired flavor barbecue lovers crave. Kingsford Original Charcoal. Kingsford Original Charcoal is ready in 15 minutes and provides consistent burn time for a great cook every time. So whether you're smoking meat, grilling vegetables, or firing up the portable, you want Kingsford Original Charcoal. Kingsford.com.
Woo! All right, Wes, we're going to play your talk back right here out of the gate. in this next segment, which is seconds away. Here we go. Woo! Woo!
To the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney.
Welcome back. And a good morning to Ralph Balderas, who just said good morning, everyone, on our live video feed. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney, Jeremy Kolok, doing even extra work this morning, working hard to get this show on the air, putting out some fires, getting very creative to solve some technical issues. He is the hardest working man in radio, our chief meteorologist, and the biggest brainiac perhaps in all of radio, as evidenced not only by what he's done this morning, but his 4.0 grade point average, his final semester at Oklahoma State University. Did you ever wear the mullet when you were there in honor of the coach at Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy? Did you ever say, hey, man, I'm a student, I'm a sports guy, I write about sports for the school newspaper, I'm gonna rock the mullet in solidarity with Coach Gundy?
No, it's more of like that's his thing because they got T-shirts with just a mullet up there at store. It's a marketing thing. You wouldn't want to take that from him. He's the mullet. He's the dude.
He might sue you if you wear a mullet.
Yeah, he might.
Or he'd say
It's
that's
trademarked.
garbage. Yep, very funny. Thank you, Coach. In a moment, Shannon's salty shakedown. Remember, since Rich Strike won the Kentucky Derby with number 21, Rich Strike was given number 21. We're asking you, who is the greatest number 21 ever in sports? We've had nominations for Tim Duncan, Deion Sanders, Cliff Branch, Kevin Garnett, Roberto Clemente, the late great Pittsburgh Pirate. Wow, that's a strong nomination that we got. In a moment, Shannon's salty shakedown, sports history and sports birthdays. But we told you about the talkback feature on the free iHeart Radio app. You go there, you listen to the show. It's always crystal clear. There's a microphone button. You press it. You can leave us a message and talk back about what's on your mind this morning. And Wes Perkins has done that. Let's listen to a talk back from our good friend Wes.
Good morning, everybody. I was absolutely in tears yesterday watching the Kentucky Derby. Whether you think about it from the story of the fire that destroyed horses from that same ownership group, or a 5-race losing streak by the horse itself, this is an inspirational story that anything is possible. You might have the longest shot in the world to win one of the biggest races known to man, but you don't get anything by not trying. This is an incredible moment for sports.
Wow, Wes Perkins, strong. Awesome. maybe one of the strongest talkback messages we've gotten yet. And Shannon, he mentions the adversity, the horses that were killed in a fire. This horse was on a losing. You talk about like Seabiscuit. This could be a movie eventually.
I don't think we actually mentioned it, but they mentioned it plenty of times during the Derby. That was the 148th Derby. They're really looking forward to the 150th. But in the last century, that horse had the greatest odds to overcome and ultimately won it all. That's
crazy. Thank you. That's actual reply from Rich Strike, which we're excited to get that audio. In a moment, Shannon's salty shakedown. But first, how about some sports birthdays and this day in sports history? On this day in 1961, we were talking about Aledmus Diaz hit a grand slam for the Houston Astros yesterday. We made that our high five play of the day. This day in 1961, Baltimore Oriole Jim Gentile hit 2 grand slams in the same game. He had 9 RBIs for the Baltimore Orioles as they trounced the Minnesota Twins. Hopefully the Astros will trounce the Twins beginning tomorrow. This day in 1995, the Cleveland Indians tie a record scoring 8 runs before making their first out in the first inning as they beat the Minnesota Twins 10-0. And finally, in 2001, this is awful, in Ghana at the Accra Sports Soccer Stadium, 129 soccer fans died in a stampede caused by the firing of tear gas by police following a decision by a referee in a crucial match between arch rivals Accra Hearts of Oak and Kumasi Asante Kotoko. 129 fans die in a stampede. Awful. That's your sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day in 1948, basketball player, Houston Rockets, Calvin Murphy. Calvin Murphy played in the Hemisphere Arena back when the Rockets would do some games before the Spurs ever played there. Born on this day in 1960, Baseball Hall of Famer Tony Gwynn, 8-time National League batting champion. Born in Los Angeles, California, Tony Gwynn passed away in 2014. Born on this day in 1984, baseball first baseman, 6-time All-Star Prince Fielder, one of my favorite names in baseball. Prince Fielder, Milwaukee Brewers, was born in Ontario, California. And finally, born on this day in 1985, he was a number 1 overall draft pick in the NFL in 2008. Jake Long, a 4-time Pro Bowler offensive tackle. A lot of people think Jake Long was related to Howie Long. No, that would be Chris Long. There are some other Longs that were related to Howie, but Jake Long, not related to Howie Long, but a lot of people think he is. All right. That's your sports birthdays. That's your sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, countrymen, farm animals, pole assassins, and monkeys, here it is, your Manic Monday Salty Shakedown.
Chris, we talked about it. We've got our last episode of the HBO series, the Winning Time series following Los Angeles Lakers and their rise in the NBA. And after that, we'll have some time off, but I'm here to let you know that there's going to be another series in the horizon that we are going to have homework for. This one is Donald Sterling. It's a mini series about Donald Sterling. It's going to be 6 episodes on FX, and it'll be titled The Sterling Affairs, based on an ESPN 30 for 30 podcast written by Gina Welch and starring, because the leads have already been cast, Sir Ed O'Neill as Donald Sterling. For those who watched Modern Family, he played the patriarch of that family. Jackie Weaver as Shelley Sterling, and Lawrence Fishburne as Doc Rivers. No word yet on who will play the mistress, but of course it follows, how his racist behavior was brought to light during the power struggle between his wife and the mistress. That feels like it wasn't that long ago at all. It was 2013, 2012, when all of that went down and was such a huge deal for the NBA, and something that was heard around the world. a Donald Sterling miniseries. I know a lot of people in Winning Time, Chris, not happy with the way that they were portrayed in this series, but I've got to imagine that if you're Donald Sterling or anyone who still stands on his side, that you're not excited about this series.
And this is another reason why we talk about Winning Time. This could be the beginning, Shannon, of a whole new genre, because I'm sure the makers of this Donald Sterling drama are saying, gosh, look at Winning Time. If we can have half that success, we're going to be huge. And we talked about, and also written by Jeff Pearlman, a book about the Cowboys back in the Jimmy Johnson era. There'd be so much you could do. I would love to see that drama. So I think this is a new thing in sports. And I'll bet you there are producers everywhere out there now looking at dramatic interpretations of sports stories, because there's certainly a market for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So no date yet on when that will be out, but details have been rolling out. So hopefully we will get that one by the end of the year. Sir, we know that not only are we big Derby folks here on the Chris Duel Show, but hockey, the number one
God, yes.
topic of conversation. And so therefore we're going to talk some hockey today in the Salty Shakedown. The NHL playoffs are going on, and the Carolina Hurricanes are in a series with the Boston Bruins. That series is tied 2-2. And hockey most of the time makes headlines when there are fights or injuries that take place on the ice. Well, the biggest fight over the weekend happened off the ice with the Boston Bruins timeout coordinator. He got into a fight with some glass, or really the glass got into a fight with him. The Bruins there was a goal that had just been scored, and the timeout coordinator sits in a box along the ice and is enclosed with glass. And as we know, hockey fans love to beat on the glass. Well, someone beat so hard on the glass that was near the coordinator, and the glass fell on him. And he immediately fell onto the bench. Joe Foley, an older gentleman who is a part of that Boston Bruins organization, he was immediately attended to by the medical staff for both teams. A stretcher had to be brought out. All the ice skaters of the hockey teams both came over and wished him well. He had to be taken to the hospital. Just something you don't expect when going to a hockey game, that for all the beating that goes on that glass, it would fall over and actually really injure somebody.
Well, and you mentioned, he's an older gentleman. I mean, even if he was a young guy, this is an awful story. And as you mentioned, Shannon, maybe one of the last things you would expect to happen at a hockey game, but freak accident. I mean, you never know where the next one's going to come from. So hopefully he's going to be okay.
Yeah, you think of all the times hockey players themselves slam or get slammed into that glass siding. I'm almost surprised after seeing something like this that we don't see more glass falling the other way into the fans of the stand. So I think a marketing opportunity for glass makers out there may have just come about because of this, but we'll see what happens in the future. But wishing him well in his recovery. Finally today, Chris, the F1 races in Miami, huge deal. Every celebrity or NBA basketball player that isn't currently in the finals, LeBron James, we're looking at you. They all seem to be in Miami over the weekend, or those that weren't at the Kentucky Derby. And I don't know that I completely understand the hype. I guess that's because Austin, we have our own F1 race. We've had it for a while now. Everyone was acting like this was the first F1 race to come to America. And now it's just like, but what about us? But anyway, I wanted to talk about this photo that Tom Brady, who was, of course, there experiencing all things F1 over the weekend, he posted this photo to his social media. And by the way, he posted a photo just a couple hours ago about, he was at the races over the weekend, but then he was back in Tampa with his helmet on doing workouts, as we are so familiar with seeing him do. But Tom Brady posted what I'm now calling the ultimate GOAT photo. And in the world of NFTs, where we're taking online images and later down the line selling them for millions of dollars, I'm thinking that this will soon break the bank for sports NFTs because, sir, this picture included Tom Brady himself, David Beckham, Lewis Hamilton, who, for those that aren't aware, the main man for the world of F1, and Michael Jordan. Now let's go through championships. Tom Brady, 7. David Beckham, 10. Lewis Hamilton, 7. Michael Jordan, 6. That's 30 combined championships in one photo. Sir, we've talked about, our Mount Rushmore of sports and athletes, but this seems to be the photo version of that, if we had to make one of this generation and just people that, are define the GOATs in their sports.
That is crazy. And you would be hard pressed to be able, and it's great that you mentioned Mount Rushmore. It's 4 of them in this photo. And you mentioned all of those championships. you would be hard pressed to assemble any other foursome and either get more championships from that foursome, or just the star power certainly of Brady, Jordan, and Beckham. I know probably fewer people know, but you just told us Lewis Hamilton with all of his F1 championships. But yeah, that's a crazy photo, and yeah, I got a feeling you're going to be seeing that one for years to come.
Yeah, maybe Brady should have saved that one for himself for a little later, so just to make some more money. He's already big into the crypto and the online currency. He should have known what he was doing there. There it is, today's Salty Shakedown.
Tremendous Salty Shakedown. So much to unpack there. And again, to Brady, Shannon, here's the oldest guy in the NFL, and you would therefore think usually the older you are, the less social media savvy you are. But here we are. It's like every week, sometimes multiple times per week, Brady is doing something on social media that is getting attention and getting us to talk about it. I mean, Brady on and maybe even off the field now, one of the great goats, not only of sports, but social media. I mean, he can't be doing this himself. He must have a team of people, younger people, giving him ideas for social media, but he is executing those ideas. I am amazed how he is always delivering something every week, and sometimes more, on social media that we talk about.
I agree. He's got to have a team around him because very, very rarely do we get a selfie video or selfie photo of him. Yesterday after he posted that picture, there was a video of him that someone took that he shared as well, walking to the track and saying, "I'm ready to change tires if needed." And like I said, just an hour ago, really great photos of him working out in his Tampa Bay Bucks helmet, throwing footballs, getting ready for the season. I mean, this guy, as he parties hard, but he plays football even more so.
Well, and to that point, Tom Brady in his Tampa Bay Buccaneers football helmet, I believe it is Thursday night of this week, Shannon, the NFL schedules drop, and we don't know the date yet, but Tampa Bay and Tom Brady coming to Cowboys Stadium, AT&T Stadium. That's a rematch of the opener from a year ago, which was pretty darn good. And I think Brady hasn't played in Dallas in many, many years. It's a big deal anywhere Brady goes, but again, Brady versus the Cowboys, that's going to be one of the highest rated games of the season.
Well, and as you say that, how great that game was last year. And I know that in history, it's always been the recent Super Bowl winner to open the season. I don't think when they announced that first game during the NFL draft, I don't think that was the opening game. So I think that slot is still technically available. And I wonder if they would switch it up just so they could do Bucks Cowboys once again, because by the end of the season last year, it ranked in the top 10. I think it was even top 5 of the most viewed games of the entire NFL season. So, if they want to really kick things off with a bang, I say you go there, because honestly, I can't think of anyone the Rams could play that would be as big of a draw.
Big 8 o'clock hour coming up. We got a sports update here at the top of the hour. NFL, NBA playoffs, Astros, and more. Chris Duel Show. All right. Jason, you are correct. There was a Grand Prix through the streets of San Antonio. I believe the late 90s. I'd have to look that up. And Red McCombs was a big investor in that Austin Formula One facility. See, I gotta send an email here.
State Farm here. Some other car insurance companies are increasing their rates in your state, but don't worry. If your bill's going up, switch to State Farm for surprisingly great rates. Like a good neighbor.
All right.
Call or visit State Farm.
Woo!
When it comes to belly grilling, the true heroes of the hobby savor the process as much as they
See.
Kingsford 100% hardwood
Gonna
belts can be used on any
put up the poll question here real quick.
with flavor. No preservatives or artificial flavors. Kingsford hardwood pellets keep the temperature consistent for you, so you can cook as low and slow as you want. Kingsford 100% hardwood pellets. Kingsford.com.
Kelly Blue Book is the one-stop shop for pricing, fixing, selling, instant cash offer. Instant cash offer is exactly what it sounds like. An official offer to buy or trade your car. Just enter your VIN or license plate, answer a few questions about your car's history, and what kind of condition it's in. In minutes, you'll receive an offer to sell or trade your car that you can be sure is fair. Then choose a dealer to purchase your car and schedule a time to meet. For all of the hits, KBP.com.
All right. John Williams says 1987. I had 90s. I was a decade away. Mike Taylor, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! Thank you, Mike Taylor. All right. Got another Roberto Clemente from John Smetzer on Facebook. Oh, there we go. Jeff Kolok. Early 90s. I do remember it. In my head, I thought it was 90s or late 90s. Yeah, John, we talked a little bit about that incident with Chris Paul's family. We may revisit it. Jason Paniagua says, Rams versus Bills or Rams versus Cowboys will open up the season. Those are both good calls. I mean, you wonder if, if the NFL is even at all concerned. And again, it's all about bottom line for them, that it would be the Cowboys 2 years in a row. And would they go with Cowboys Buccaneers a second year in a row? That would be interesting. Okay, NFL schedule release. 8 o'clock Thursday, and that's 8 o'clock Eastern. So that's 7 o'clock Central Time. Oh, it's simulcast on FS1. Beautiful. So if you don't have NFL Network, you still have a good shot at it. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So that's Jeremy's dad. Jeremy's dad on the live video feed. Pull that up again. Well, and he picked a good day, Jeff. Jeremy is going crazy today, doing a great job. We had technical issues all morning. Here we go. What a manic Monday it is on the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney, and the hardest working man in radio, Jeremy Kolok. In fact, Shannon, breaking live video feed news. Jeremy, we've had Jeremy's mom on the live video feed. We've actually had Jeremy's mom on the show. And now Jeremy's dad posting on the live video feed. That's got to be some kind of a record that anybody's had both of their parents on the show. That's pretty amazing.
A family affair.
Woo! Yeah, somebody call Sly and the Family Stone for that. And Jeff Kolok pointed out, because somebody was asking the question, you brought up Formula One, Shannon, and the incredible photo that Tom Brady posted with Michael Jordan, Beckham, and Hamilton, who he should have had somebody from the Broadway play Hamilton in that photo as well. He should have had Lin-Manuel Miranda.
It might have been more recognized in America than Lewis Hamilton himself, but yeah.
Yeah, good point. But so somebody was saying, because you mentioned Formula One, a huge deal in Austin now. Red McCombs, one of the original investors in that. I remember having Red on the radio with us when he made the announcement he was investing in Formula One in the Austin area. So somebody brought up the question, wasn't there a Formula One Grand Prix in San Antonio? And Jeff Kolok wrote, San Antonio Nissan Grand Prix in the early 90s through the streets of downtown San Antonio. I don't remember how many years it ran. but it was short-lived. And I remember it as well, and that was part of what was interesting about that, Shannon. It went through downtown. They had to block off streets in downtown San Antonio to run a Grand Prix Formula One race. So it didn't last long. Luckily, I don't recall there being a disaster involved. So, that's a good thing.
The street race versions of those are absolutely insane. And the shutdowns that need to take place, the types of turns, I mean, that's almost scary to me.
Now, we brought up in the previous segment, and the NFL schedule will drop on Thursday night, and the NFL Network is going to air it at 7 o'clock Thursday night Central Time. What I like, they're going to simulcast it on Fox Sports 1, because I know my system at home, I don't have the NFL Network, but or like many people, I've got Fox Sports 1. So I like this because it's going to give me a chance to watch it on Thursday night. So that'll be our required viewing on Thursday night. Tonight, we're going to watch the finale of Winning Time, Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. But you brought up, Shannon, and I think it's a great point of speculation. Might the NFL on their opening Thursday night kickoff, knowing it was such a marquee game and it had so much sizzle, might they just do a reprise because it was in Tampa Bay last year, Cowboys, Buccaneers. That game we already know will be in Arlington this year, but we won't know till Thursday night when that game will be. So the question is, would the NFL risk complaints maybe from viewers or owners or fans of other teams going, hey, what are we, chopped liver over here? You can't do this 2 years in a row. Now, Jason Paniagua on the live video feed, looking into his crystal Chuck Taylors, which I kind of like. He says it opening game on opening night will be Rams versus the Buffalo Bills, which I think would have a lot of sizzle. And he says, or Rams versus Cowboys to open the season. What do you think of those?
Anything Cowboys involved, I think sounds great. I don't think it's crazy to think the Rams, obviously being recent Super Bowl champions, is far-fetched, but I do have some breaking news. So Jeremy, if you can, go ahead, because while we're talking about this NFL schedule, the NFL has been tweeting this morning.
Oh, here we go. Let's see if there it is.
Handed an urgent news story. Stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, Chris, we're talking about week 1, but week 2 will offer a Monday Night Football doubleheader, and we have the announcement of who will be involved with that. The first game of the night will feature the Tennessee Titans and the Buffalo Bills. So my second team getting a feature slate early in the season. That's always great because it's hard to watch the Bills when you live in Texas. And the second game of the night, a little less interesting for me, except for the NFC East involvement, the Minnesota Vikings versus the Philadelphia Eagles.
Wow. First of all, as you do this breaking news, Shannon, coming up on 8:12, and the NFL is so brilliant. Here we are on a Monday morning, and Kentucky Derby's a big story.
Yes.
NBA playoffs, Chris Paul's family getting harassed in Dallas, John Morant is injured, and the NFL goes, you know what? There's sports talk shows on radio and TV all over the country. We're going to drop this, so they're going to talk about us, and they do. Tennessee at Buffalo. Good one. Minnesota at Philadelphia, not as much sizzle. Now, which one of those, Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, I would imagine they would be Tennessee Buffalo, but we don't know for sure, right?
Well, it says here that it's interesting because these games there's an earlier game and a later game, but the games will be playing simultaneously at some point because Tennessee Buffalo will kick off at 6:15 Central Time on ESPN, with Minnesota and Philadelphia kicking off at 7:30 Central Time on ABC. So two separate channels here running the games. It'll be interesting to see which one they'll give to Troy and see which one he calls. But I don't know that I like, Monday Night Football. The great thing about it is that it's the only one that's on, right? I mean,
yes.
What are we going to watch? And on top of that, we already have to flip between the regular ESPN broadcast and the Mannings, should they be covering that specific game. And so now we've got 3 we're going to have to flip through.
That's crazy. Yeah. And it would just seem to me, unless you're an Eagles or a Vikings fan, that Tennessee Buffalo matchup just
right.
has so much more sizzle to it. I can't imagine. I remember hearing Troy Aikman complaining last year when he didn't get that NFC. Fox didn't get that NFC first round game between the Cowboys and the 49ers. And Troy, sarcastically on the air saying, well, that sure would be a nice game for us to call, wouldn't it? If Troy and Joe Buck got Minnesota at Philly, and all the excitement is Tennessee at Buffalo, I gotta guess that Aikman and Buck get that one. But I'm with you. Monday Night Football, just like Sunday Night Football, both should be standalone games. I like a doubleheader because more football is good football, but I don't like that they overlap at all. I don't think that's cool.
Yeah, it's not a true doubleheader, is it, when you do it that way?
No, absolutely not. All right, another thing we didn't get into yet. Speaking of the National Football League, Earl Thomas continues to make headlines in the wrong way. As we know, Earl Thomas, originally a member of the Legion of Boom, from Texas, lives in the Austin area. So a lot of us for years, he had openly said, I'm a Cowboys fan. We had always kind of hoped the Cowboys would acquire Earl Thomas. A few years ago, we hoped that. He wound up with the Baltimore Ravens. He was very disruptive, got into fights in practices with teammates. The team itself voted him off the island. His Raven teammate said, this guy's got to go. We know that incredible story of which I have a famous drop on the Mike Taylor show when I was reading a quote from his wife when she showed up at an Airbnb when Earl Thomas and his brother were with allegedly, maybe not so allegedly, I think it's official, were with some other ladies. And now that's a direct quote. See, Mike Taylor and Sam Freese will play that and just think that Chris Duel, had something for all those hoes. Nope. That was Earl Thomas's wife when she busted into the bed and breakfast with a gun, saying that. I'm forgetting what Earl Thomas's wife's name is. I'm reading the story. It doesn't have her name. I'll find it. So not a very good writing job there by Mike Fisher, the fish, who is usually I'm looking at a Mike Fisher story. But so now apparently there is a custody dispute between Earl Thomas and his wife. And Earl Thomas, you probably don't want to do things like this during a custody dispute, especially because your wife probably has an attorney and she will probably show your texts to her attorney. Apparently, among the texts, Earl Thomas sending his wife, allegedly he threatens to poison her and the kids. And now there is a felony arrest warrant issued for Earl Thomas in Shannon in Austin, Texas, where you do this show from 99% of the time, although you're in Houston right now. But your thoughts on Austin native and resident and Earl, if you're listening, call in, man. We'd love to talk to you. Earl Thomas.
I mean, you mentioned the timing with his custody battle, but also the timing of less than a week ago, we heard from him saying that he was ready to get back into the NFL, that he was in great shape and wanted to join a team. And so that had Cowboys fans talking. It's just disappointing. And I'm kind of wondering where it all went downhill. Earl Thomas has a Hall of Fame worthy career, but his actions off the field, although we've seen in the past, hasn't always kept folks out of the Hall of Fame. But I don't know, this could come back to bite him because he is a 7-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro first team, 2-time second team, a Super Bowl champion, and he was listed to the 2010s NFL All-Decade team. So he has an incredible career. And I don't know, I just think ever since he hurt himself in that Seahawks game, he was taken off the field on the cart and he was flipping the bird to one coach over on the sideline. It just feels like from that moment on, it's just been nothing but controversy with the Earl Thomas story. And as I said, even though we've seen in the past some Hall of Famers with, extracurriculars outside that a lot of people don't agree with have gotten that gold jacket, I just don't know if it'll get by for him this time, just because it's been so much and so quickly.
And I worry, Shannon, and again, this is wild speculation on my part, but this is what, as sports fans, we sometimes do. It's informed wild speculation just based on what we've seen over the years and the knowledge and the science that continues to come out. And we don't know, but I must wonder, especially when Earl Thomas went, you talk about flipping off the entire sideline and coaching staff,
Seahawks,
including
yeah.
Pete Carroll when he left the field in Seattle. Okay, then you've got Baltimore where he got into multiple fights with teammates, and it was so bad that the team itself voted, it's like, please, let's cut him. He's got to go. We don't want to play as great. And you mentioned a Hall of Fame career. We got a Hall of Famer playing for a badass team, the Baltimore Ravens, and we don't want him anymore. And now what is alleged to be a threatening murder, threatening to poison, the estranged wife and maybe even the kids, if this is true, what is being reported about the text messages. This is, flipping the bird is one thing. Getting into fights with teammates and perhaps allegedly making death threats. I wonder about CTE. I wonder, we've heard it so many times, and there is science to support it. Multiple head trauma, and Earl Thomas, Legion of Boom, was a big hitter. And you just don't know. And I pray to God he's going to be okay. And even though a lot of this is very, very bad behavior, I wish everybody the grace and the opportunity and the hopes that they can turn their lives around. But this certainly, Shannon, I think has to raise suspicions and questions as to whether or not there's something going on in the head of Earl Thomas, not only psychologically, but maybe even just directly physically, and maybe attributed to his football playing career.
Yeah, and his life outside of that. I mean, that's what you hear so often from people who do have CTE, who did, get that from playing in the NFL, that it disrupts their life after the fact. It disrupts their home life. It makes things hard makes it hard to function in the way that so many get to do naturally. And, I hate this for him. I hate this for his family. And I hate it for Longhorn Nation because he, we just went through the list of his NFL accomplishments. He's one of the bigger names on the defensive side to ever come out of the University of Texas. And because some of these incidents have taken place in Austin, and because he is a former Longhorn and one who's found great success in the NFL, a lot of it's coming back to that program.
Well, Shannon, this may be unprecedented in one segment. You opened up this segment with breaking news involving the National Football League dropping the announcement of Monday Night Football Week 2 matchups, Tennessee at Buffalo, Minnesota at Philadelphia, and now Jeremy Kolok with some breaking Woj news. Adrian Wojnarowski. Jeremy, what we got some breaking news. What do you got?
Urgent news story. Stop what you're doing and listen.
Well,
I can never pronounce that name. Okay, now we got to talk about this, Shannon and Jeremy. And this is why maybe, and I know we hear this all the time in the NBA, in football and other leagues, MVP is a regular season award, but famously, the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic disappear in the playoffs and have not gone deep in the playoffs. Who have we been talking about this whole playoff run? Ja Morant, who is now injured. Steph Curry has been huge. Giannis delivered a championship last year to the Milwaukee Bucks, but Jokic was the MVP because of the regular season. I think, Shannon, it's got to be, they got to revisit the MVP and maybe include, or give us two. Give us a regular season MVP and give us a playoff MVP. Because when it's Nikola Jokic, I mean, I hear that right now in the middle of the playoffs. It's like, really? Where's he been? Not playing lately.
Yeah, and that's some kind of a similar argument we hear with the NFL, right? And the NFL does their awards, just prior to the Super Bowl and even the Heisman Trophy candidacy, right? Okay, well, let's see what they do, if they can lead their teams to a championship. Shouldn't that be part of the weight carried in the voting process? So, and I agree to it at some extent, and, timing and this and that. I love this for Nikola Jokic, though. He back to back previously, Giannis back to back. I mean, it's kind of becoming the era of the big man, because before that it was Harden, Westbrook, Curry, Durant, James, Rose. I mean, it was those guys, and it was seen as the kind of shift in basketball landscape that the big man was no longer, responsible for carrying a team or being able to even be in the conversation for an MVP. But yet here we are, and Nikola Jokic gets it once again.
It's pretty amazing. Jeremy, you are a huge NBA guy. You're going through it right now because of your man, Ja Morant, knocked out of action for Game 3, in which the Memphis Grizzlies were decimated, I think, by 30 points by the Golden State Warriors. And we're hearing that Ja Morant will not play in Game 4 tonight, which makes things even rougher for Memphis. But am I overreacting? Is Jokic deserving of back-to-back MVPs? But should the NBA include the playoffs in its MVP consideration, or might there be a need for two? Because the playoff season of the NBA, it really is like a second season. I know they say that about football and baseball, but it really seems like a second season in the NBA. Should there be two separate MVP awards, regular season and playoffs?
Yeah, and it's a tough thing, because when you watch Jokic individually, it's hard to say well, he doesn't deserve it. But if it was in my hands, or at least if I had a vote, I would not have voted for Nikola Jokic. I would have voted for Joel Embiid this year, and Jokic would have been my second place. And I just think it's hard to compare, especially when someone is in contention or they win back-to-back MVPs. It's so hard to then compare those years. And also, you just I feel like we as sports fans or as media or whatever just kind of get tired of like we see Giannis. Well, Giannis is going to win a third. He's won 2. You know what I mean? It's on to the next name. It's kind of like an unwritten rule. Unless you win 2, if you're not Michael Jordan or maybe Kobe Bryant or LeBron James in that conversation, it's time for us to focus on someone else. So I just think it's the Giannis he didn't have any drop in his play this year for him to not be in the conversation still. Same thing with last year, but it was Jokic's turn. He was the new hot MVP. You know what I mean? Now Jokic has won his 2 MVPs. I think it should have been Embiid's time. I just think it's interesting the way it goes in cycles and stuff. I would have personally voted for Embiid, but it's so hard, especially when you talk about value and, I feel like this conversation always goes to, what does most valuable player mean? Is it the best player or the most value to your team? I mean, Jokic, he certainly has that value with Jamal Murray out in the way he played this year. But Chris, I think we should probably wait until at least after the first round of the playoffs to submit our votes for the MVP. I mean, what if the MVP plays awful in the first round? What if he just doesn't have a good round and then he wins the MVP?
Well, and that's a great point, Shannon. Here we are saying now, back to back, and not a lot of guys have done that. Nikola Jokic, you're the most valuable player, and now we know that the most valuable player couldn't get out of the first round of the playoffs. I mean, how valuable are you if you can't do that?
With Jeremy talking about Joel Embiid, it kind of brings me back to Aaron Rodgers, towards the end of the season, when some writers were saying that they were not going to vote for him, not because of his play on the field, but because of his, actions and words spoken off the field. And that became the overwhelming story as far as Aaron Rodgers' season was concerned. And I'm wondering, Joel Embiid being on the 76ers, having to deal with all of the Ben Simmons discussion prior to him being traded. He gets traded. James Harden comes in. If that kind of takes away from the perspective of what Joel Embiid was doing for that team and organization. And it's funny, I just searched, about this MVP nomination, and Philadelphia Sports immediately tweeted out, whatever. He's our MVP.
Yeah, man, if you're a Sixers fan, and our good friend Bill Schoening, who's a Sixers fan, will join us on Wednesday. And speaking of Joel Embiid, man, he has come back, and his Philadelphia 76ers, with Embiid back, have tied the series against the Miami Heat 2-2. Sixers win 116-108 yesterday. And Joel Embiid in 38 minutes wearing that mask goes for a double-double, 24 and 11. 24 points, 11 rebounds for Joel Embiid. And all of a sudden, we got us a series between the Sixers and the Heat. Quick break. We'll talk more NBA playoffs. We'll dive back into the NFL as well. And Major League Baseball, the hottest team right now, the Houston Astros, the longest win streak in baseball. They've won 7 in a row, and they're taking on Carlos Correa beginning tomorrow. They got the day off. They go to Minneapolis to take on the Minnesota Twins and Carlos Correa. That'll be a lot of fun. Lots more coming up. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Whoa, that's loud. All right. How am I doing on tea? I need more. Do I drink too much tea? Pure leaf, unsweetened, no sugar. Woo! Woo! All right, why is that not working? Woo! Woo!
When it comes to pellet grilling, the true heroes of the genre savor the process as much as they savor the result. Kingsford 100% hardwood pellets can be used on any
Very funny, John Williams.
bold, smoky with flavor to any meal. No preservatives or
That's a great point, James Rippey, especially now. When Embiid goes out, Sixers can't win. When Embiid comes back, they even the series and may win the series now. Computer sometimes. Got a shout out request, and of course we do shout outs. See, where did that go? Woo! Here we come.
Back to the crypt. Shannon, Salty, Sweeney.
The Top Gun theme, Highway to the Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins. Appropriately, the next Top Gun movie is about to drop with Tom Cruise. And apparently, and this is really plausible, he's like a 60-year-old fighter pilot now after all these years. Yeah, we believe that. That's plausible. Chris Duel show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney, and Shannon and Jeremy. I've been requested to give a shout out. We are all about the shout outs. And by the way, don't forget, you can always do your own shout out in your own voice. And one of the best ways to do that is the free iHeart Radio app. There's a little microphone button there. It is the talkback button. And when you press it, you got 30 seconds to leave a message. Could be a shout out. You do it, you press send, we get it, and we'll play it on the air. But I got this one as a Facebook message, which is fine. Paul and Annette Quintero. Paul and Annette Quintero say, can you give a shout out to the Harlan High School softball team out of San Antonio, kind of like Leon Valley? They are moving on to the third round of the playoffs. They scored 16 runs and allowed only 1 run in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. So absolutely, the Harlan Hawks, as I get my mascots straight, congratulations to the Harlan Hawks softball team. Keep on keeping on, keep on winning, and on to state, and go ahead and take the whole darn thing. Shannon, Salty, Sweeney, we talked a lot of NBA playoffs. They are really, really heating up. Both Charles Barkley and Giannis part of the conversation in what has been newsworthy lately in the NBA playoffs.
Yeah, we discussed a little bit earlier that Mavs and Suns series now tied at 2 apiece. And unfortunately, during that series in Dallas, there were some unruly Dallas Mavericks fans who actually put hands on Chris Paul's mother and wife. And so naturally, the TNT crew that we love so much, including Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, Kenny the Jet Smith, and oh gosh, what's the lead? Ronnie, right? Or is that, help me out?
Ernie Johnson.
Ernie
Yeah.
Johnson and Ronnie. They spoke about it, and Charles Barkley has decided on a plan of action that the NBA needs to put into action here in motion for fans who don't act like fans and act like their players are almost like MMA fighters, really. But here's Charles Barkley on what he would do.
I've always said, hey, we could put an end to all this stuff. Some of the stuff these fans say, let's take them right down to center court for 5 minutes. I've always said that. Some of the crap they say to you, hey, let's give me 5 minutes to center court with them until say, you ain't gonna press no charges. Nobody gonna get it. Ain't nobody gonna be sued civilly. Say what you just said to me right to my face right here for these 5 minutes. I'm gonna beat your ass, beat the hell out of you. It would take you 5 minutes? Oh no, I'm gonna take my time. I'm not gonna beat him up quickly. I'm gonna jab him a little bit. Then I'm gonna lay the haymakers on their ass.
Well, obviously, I hear you, Foreman. Charles Foreman in a real world, in a real society, other than the gladiator.
No, we purging people.
Not happening.
We're purging people.
I mean, I think your earlier point was 100%.
Beautiful. You got to love Charles Barkley. And that is one of the big ironies. And that attitude led to the Malice in the Palace, by the way, many, many years ago. Yes. But that is one of the big ironies that, here are these obnoxious fans yelling out often horrible things at these athletes, Shannon, and these athletes anywhere, any day, anytime could, without a lot of effort, take this unruly heckler out.
Yes, and we talk about this incident did occur with Chris Paul and his family members, and he took his frustration out on Twitter saying, want to find players for saying stuff to the fans, but the fans can put their hands on our families, blank, 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 blank that. So Chris Paul clearly upset. And you mentioned Giannis, the Milwaukee Bucks in a 2-1 series right now with the Celtics. And the Bucks did win over the weekend on Saturday, but it was a very close one, 103-101. And during his presser, he was asked about the refereeing, the fouls that were being called, that weren't being called. But as we've seen in the past, and sometimes comments about refs can result in fines. And so this was Giannis in his post-game presser.
Would you welcome the game be called a little bit tighter, or is it playoff basketball? As Drew said, it makes men out of boys. This is what it is.
Wait, hold on. How much does it cost if I take Mr. Dan? Is Mr. Dan here? No? Barry, how much does it cost if I say something, a comment about the ref? Is it 20,000? it's a lot of money, so I should not do it. I save my money. I gotta pay for diapers. I just gotta play through it. We all gotta play through it. There's gonna be sometimes they're gonna call it, sometimes they're not gonna call it. But at the end of the day, it's what Drew said. It's playoff basketball.
How do you not love Giannis? How cool is that? It's so real. What a real comment.
Well, and when so many we see these fines all of the time, and we talk about how that's, for some, that's just chump change. And Giannis would be one of those that if he were to be fined that much, it wouldn't be a whole lot. But given where he came from in his life and where he is now, he understands the value of money, and it's not to be thrown away by some throwaway comment about a ref in a post game, especially a game that you just won. You don't want to complain about that. So I love it, and I love that he mentions diapers. I don't know how much they cost, but I'm sure like gas, it's very expensive.
Well, and once again, we've talked about Scott Foster, and it seems more and more, Shannon. I don't know if the NBA itself really cares about this, because it is getting people talking.
Sure.
But when the referees become the focus in the playoffs, and certainly if we ever have a situation where we'll look at an NBA playoff game and go, hey man, if the refs wouldn't have made that call, it would have gone the other way. I do think it is concerning, and as an NBA fan, as a Spurs fan, I'd rather we not be talking about the referees, especially in the playoffs.
Well, it's interesting you say that. We talked about Scott Frost last week and the him at the Boston and Milwaukee game, and prior to the game, they were showing Jack Harlow, the rapper, who was also at the Kentucky Derby, and how they didn't know who he was. Well, the refs, putting themselves back into the spotlight, then created a mashup video of themselves singing Jack Harlow songs. They made a bit out of it. So they're at the same time off the court putting themselves into the spotlight.
So what? And I didn't see that, Shannon. So this wasn't somebody else did it. The refs themselves,
yes,
actual NBA officials who are being paid to officiate games. See, that's not your job. You don't become a star. Well, if you choose to be an official in the NBA or the NFL or baseball, no, we don't want to see your TikToks. We don't want to see it be about you.
This is from the official NBA refs Twitter account, verified. The video has 2.9 million views.
Am I wrong, Shannon? Do you like this? Is this a good idea?
I guess I like the play. If anything, I take this as like Scott Frost and company trying to be, I guess more humanized, because he gets such a bad rap as being the guy who you don't want to have ref your games. But this is just, as playoff basketball, it's not the time or place. The Jack Harlow thing, it was funny at first, whatever, but it's not. I don't think it's worthy of the production that it ended up receiving.
Now, speaking of Jack Harlow, and like those officials, Shannon, we discovered on this show that I didn't know who Jack Harlow was, but now I do. I know who Drake is.
Yes.
So Drake and Jack Harlow at the Kentucky Derby, and apparently making some noise there, getting some attention.
Yeah, it was a big week for Jack Harlow, starting with that Boston Celtics game, sitting courtside, and then his debut album released on Friday. So he had a party in his hometown of just down the road from the Derby. He is from Kentucky, and Drake was a member of that party, as well as some of his other friends. And Jack also invited to do the official Riders Up call just prior to the Derby. Now, Jack Harlow has said numerous times in interviews that he quit drinking about 1.5 years ago, not because he had a problem, but because he wanted to really focus on his career and his music and just be level-headed at all times. So he was being interviewed by the NBC crew who was doing pre-race coverage, and over walks Drake, who was clearly on something to begin with, probably a mint julep or 7. He even made a point at the end of it to say just how kind of messed up he was. But the awkward part was the producers apparently realized just how messed up he was. I guess got nervous because they started giving the rap signal behind the cameras, to which Drake in front of the camera started giving it back and saying, "You don't need to do that. We know what's going on here." It was, he was very much enjoying himself. I mean, I can't blame him, right? You go to the Derby. What do? You place your bet and you hang out and you drink some mint juleps and you wait for that 3 minutes of action. But you wait, what, 9-10 hours, depending on how long you've been there. You wait a very long time. You gotta do something with yourself.
Finally, speaking of the Kentucky Derby, Gail, who Jeremy knows very well, says, I'm late to the party, but did you guys talk about Rich Strike's misbehavior
Oh my
after
goodness.
the race? Yeah, care to dive into that topic, Shannon?
I mean, prior to the race, where they show the horses walking to their gates, they were about to start the race, and I think it was gate 2. That horse needed to be pulled out before being put back in, and then bam, it was off to the races. Rich Strike ultimately wins, and they I don't know what they call him. It's almost like a lead. A gentleman in a red coat on another horse helps guide the horses to, I guess, the winner circle or back to their stables, wherever it may be. But Rich Strike kept biting onto the reins of this other horse and yanking him. And you could see the gentleman who was trying to assist was getting very flustered. They ultimately had to get another guy on a horse to come around the other side to help settle him down. I guess he was just, so happy about his win. He just couldn't stand it.
Wow. You know what? That may be misbehavior. I think Rich Strike can have whatever he wants. You want to bite on the reins, just give that horse whatever horses enjoy food-wise or whatever. It's a great question. We have a lot of nominees for Rich Strike was number 21. So we posed the question earlier, who's the greatest number 21 ever? Obviously, Tim Duncan is my favorite 21, but Deion Sanders, Cliff Branch, Roberto Clemente among them. And Shannon, I do like your point. Somebody we will not consider for the greatest 21 ever, Ezekiel Elliott.
Which is sad, right? Because early on in his career, he looked to be like a guy that was really going to continue making that impact that we saw him have in his earlier seasons. And now it's just kind of the conversation of like, I mean, he's a name, he's a big name, but he's also a big spending point for the Cowboys. And I don't know how much longer we need him on our team.
I agree. And he seems to be losing his effectiveness over time. Outstanding show, Shannon and Jeremy. And of course, the three of us, it dropped the final episode, Winning Time, Rise of the Lakers Dynasty on HBO and HBO Max. Are we going to watch that tonight, Shannon?
Yes, that is on the schedule for me today.
See, I got to work that in with that Texas Longhorn tour stop this evening as well. Maybe I'll watch it with Sark and say, hey, Sark, have you seen the final episode? We go over here in the corner and watch. We'll see. Jeremy, exceptional job today, putting out all sorts of fires. Great job, sir. Jeremy just knocking it out of the park as always as well. We will see you in 21 hours. Have yourself a wonderful Manic Monday. Adios, amigos. All right, y'all. Have a great Monday. We will see you tomorrow.